like so there's Patricia or Patty here also. So this
Yeah.
is our life coach I was telling you about
Hmm.
from South Africa. So Patricia, I want you to meet Scott, our business coach, and he's like a life
Hmm.
transformation coach who has like tons of experience. So this is
Hey, Trisha.
Patricia or Pat.
Oh, she's here.
Hello.
Hey.
So
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon.
we'll
Hi,
get
Trisha. I'm Scott.
It's evening this side. Yes.
we'll get her ideas about. So Patricia, we are talking about compassion in a divided world. So please add in your insights, experiences, all these things. So Scott is our host here in this our program. I would like to hand over program. So we introduce ourselves. So since Patricia is also here, so Scott, I'll just mention it like he's a well experienced, like decades of experience in the business field. So and business coach, uh, and a mentor and a life transformation coach. I think he has a lot of things to uh, how to say offer to the world and many people. So Scott, I would like to hand it over to you as our host of this program. So then Patricia, please how to say introduce yourself. Then we'll continue with the program.
Okay.
Yes, is it Trisha or Patricia?
It's Patricia. It was easier for Sanji to call me because my name is Bongani. No, it's okay. But Patricia works too because it's still my name, yeah.
Okay, and no, no, please, yeah, and we are being recorded now, but I would love to hear about what you're in South Africa. Is that right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Where in South Africa?
In Cape Town.
Cape Town.
I'm in
Sweet.
Cape. Yeah.
Okay. No,
Yes, I'm in
tell me
Cape.
about yourself and what you're doing in South Africa and your things in your life coaching right now that resonates with you or make your scalp tingle and make you smile or make you go lapse into deep thought and things like
Okay.
that.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. So basically, I'm fairly new within the industry. I'm an etiquette of life coach. My content or my work is basic on real life situations that we all go through. When I met Sanji, the similarities in our background was charity. I'm also big on charity. So it kind of aligns with what I do. I started Etiquette of Life basically May 2023, and it's been a journey of discovery, growth, trying to identify the field and what works, what people like, what they don't like. Like I said from the beginning, I'm fairly new, making mistakes on the way, trying to adjust because everyone or in different places they have a different way of doing things. So I tend to delve into realities that we all go through, most of them that are so uncomfortable to speak about because most of the time when I share, people don't say much because they'll be like, you're speaking on topics that are not so friendly, which I totally
Hmm.
understand, and motivation, growth, learning. And when Sanji came across my page on LinkedIn, it has been, I guess, growth on my end, just to be exposed, just to understand what people do in different things. Because there's also on meditation. You also spoke about what you also do, and yeah, it's been a journey. It's still a journey of discovering growth. Like I said from the beginning, I share on different platforms: LinkedIn, Instagram, the WhatsApp channel, and yes, it's quite a journey.
That's I yeah, you said several things that I really like or that make my brain start firing in different directions. Um, and the first thing I want to talk about though is that that thing that you said, a journey of discovery, right? Because this is kind of, what Sanji's been dragging me along, and like, I don't know how long ago you first started talking to Sanji. I'd say, Sanji, we first connected like July maybe of this year,
Okay.
and we talk, and Sanji's great because he has experience being a Buddhist monk, but he also has a very acute, strong business sense, and and I haven't been resistant. I mean, I have these, I've had a lot of one-on-one conversations with Sanji. But I'm also very, I have lots of other life going on, and this is very important. And I keep on telling myself, I'm going to do this soon. I'm going to do this soon, and then we start doing it, and then we record it. But okay, no, for our topic, I was just doing some research and wanted to kickstart my creative process. So I fed the notion of compassion, understand, compassion in a divided world, I think, is our topic, our stated topic for this discussion. And I wanted some key talking points instead of just kind of personally rambling through the topic and what it means to me, and bringing up personal anecdotes, and then tripping and stumbling along the path in ways that completely make sense to me. But unfortunately, what makes sense to me and the way my brain works doesn't always relate to, unfortunately, a lot of other people, because I find sometimes I'll talk, and people just kind of look at me with this blank stare. But anyway, so in that topic of compassion in a divided world, and I do appreciate AI for that, because I was working all day doing a lot of stuff I didn't want to do. Unfortunately, that's like mundane revenue creation, and it doesn't hit me in a passionate way like our conversations do. But so it was getting late, and I typed our title into AI and asked for some more or less bullet points. I didn't use the phrase bullet points, but just how would something like this look? And of course, and I appreciate this. It mentioned getting an understanding of what compassion is, right? And then then I had a little bit of fear, because I start, you look up the definition of compassion, and then I'm like, oh gosh, this is something that we could talk about for a long time. But that's not a bad thing. Understanding what compassion is, and not even getting into the necessity of compassion in a divided world, because we are seeing a very divided world right now. And then you have to divide it into two groups, right? Because there's this notion of compassion, and then understanding what that is, and then how that relates to what we're calling a divided world, and then defining a divided world. But it's very important to, excuse me, like, and again, I don't want to get boring, but define terms, right? What is compassion? Because when you talk about compassion, it brings up two other concepts, which are equally important. One is sympathy, and the other one is empathy. But, and I'm glad I'm glad I did this, actually, because I did go in and like got a definition for compassion. Compassion is a deep awareness of the suffering of another with the wish to relieve it. Okay.
Very nice.
And that's it's funny when I talk about that, I feel a little tingling around my chest, and it's a supremely important concept. And I think it's something also that resonates with you because you spent a lot of your life. I think compassion is core tenet of Buddhism. No.
Uh, yeah. So yeah, like it says, "Karuna Sitala Hadayang," like your heart. Exactly what you meant.
Whoa. What was the phrase you just said? And say it again for me.
Karuna Sitala Hadayang. No, Hadayang is heart.
Okay.
Karuna is compassion. And then it's like your heart. Usually, like we say, some person's hearts are like stone cold, right? Like a dead person.
Yeah.
But this is like it turns like into butter. It melts. It's not like some people are happy when they see other people suffering. No, it happens. Oh,
Mhm.
for you deserve it. No, even
Yeah.
somebody do some bad thing to you, and then we say you should be punished or like you deserve what you got. Uh, so, but when some people like see the suffering even of an enemy, they call it or they should be enemies. No, but they don't feel like that. They don't
Mhm.
want even animal or anybody to suffer, and they have this genuine feeling that comes out. We all carry this, but we suppress it so much, and sometimes some circumstance.
But you say we all carry it though, and I don't know if we all carry it.
Yeah,
But
we have it deep rootedly. That's why it pops up again, pops up like from time to time.
yeah, there's that word. It's going to keep on
Popping
popping
up.
up. Yes.
So yeah, but we kind of like put it down because the negative of that can overpower it. That's why people are not always compassionate. Uh, So, but if it was, this whole world would have been a beautiful place, and we need much of that. But actually, some traditions and all and livelihoods also they promote this. So
Mhm.
then you genuinely, if you cannot help, for example, you don't have any money at that time or anything, at least you wish this person. There are meditations also to practice, which we will do in a short while, and there, like you bring this authentic, like intention out.
Mm.
Is very wholesome and positive, and that goes to words as well as actions.
That's great. So then, and that's a whole, that's a whole crystallized concept, but it isn't totally. It's very closely related to the other two words I brought up, which are sympathy and empathy,
Uh-huh.
right? And sympathy, and these aren't synonyms, right? These aren't words that mean the same thing, really, because sympathy is a feeling of pity or sorrow for another.
Uh-huh.
But then there's another common usage of the word, and that's a mutual understanding or feeling between people, and
Mhm.
that's sympathy. All right, and that's, yeah. I'm not going to say it's a very important component of compassion, but I just want to keep the idea that they're separate concepts. Well, they are linked, and then that brings on empathy, right? Which is the ability to actually share. So it is, I guess, sympathy is you see and you can see it, but empathy is that you're feeling it.
Mhm.
Okay, sharing someone else's feelings, and the reason I'm slowing down on this is because empathy is a very, very important concept, I think, and it is different from sympathy. Uh, Sympathy is seeing it, but not necessarily feeling it, the other's emotions. And when we talk about this, we're really talking about, usually, and especially in the context of our discussion, compassion in a divided world. We're thinking about the observing or feeling someone else's distress.
Mhm.
That I think that's where our mind goes right now. I mean, and I'm sorry, and I'm stumbling because the concept isn't just distress, it's the whole spectrum of emotions, whether it's joy or sorrow or envy. It's feeling or observing that. But empathy I find particularly fascinating also because it's, like I said, it's described as that ability to share, but there's actually a part in our brain, right, that controls that function. And just the brain is fascinating. It's, I think, by far and away the most incredible thing, period. It's very powerful beyond uh, what we're aware and what we're trying to figure out. It's so powerful, and it uses so much energy. It's like the most intricate and complicated computer that has ever been created, and it'd be very, very hard to recreate on our level. But it's called, the part of the brain is called the anterior insular cortex, right? So they've done studies in which that part of the brain, the anterior insular cortex, has been affected by lesions, and these people don't have that ability to and the difference between sympathy and empathy is actually the sharing and the feeling of what that other person is experiencing. So there is a part of the brain, and we pick it up by micro clues, micro gestures. People have gestures. When you have a thought, often it'll be reflected across your face, and it's a micro expression. Sometimes that expression is shown for like less than a second. But as you're saying, we pick them up. There's that part in our brain and our body that picks that up, even though we might not consciously be aware of it. But and these are all very important things to talk about, just as I was saying earlier, just to get a baseline of understanding. It's important to define terms, because I've had big, drawn out arguments with people that hinged on a misunderstanding of the same word, right? Like one word will mean very, very, very different things to both of us. Not necessarily you and I, but but like me and people that are very, very close to me. That the people that are in my innermost circle, the people that I hold closest to me. You think that a simple word such as compassion or empathy would mean exactly the same thing. But again, I've had, I don't want to say knock down, drag out fights with people, but I've had big arguments with people that I love, that I spend like, I don't want to say my girlfriend, but my girlfriend, or your loved ones, your partners. And so you have to get a very tight definition of what it is you're talking about. And then when I say things like that, I feel like I run into that moment where I lose people. But it's important to, because you can spend so much time fighting and arguing. And that, maybe that brings us, in an odd circular way, to the divided world. Because, you get into these big fights over concepts. And if you really listen to your arguments, you're not even fighting over the same thing. You probably agree on the core tenets of what you're arguing about. But there's something else there, that because that word will have will resonate in you, this emotional occurrence that happened in your past that makes you angry and still hurts so much that it brings up all these emotions. And that's really what you're arguing about, something that occurred to you and now, I'm going down this area where I lose people often. You go, you start having an argument, and you aren't arguing over necessarily just this word compassion, but some other emotional, something that happened in the past that still hurts. And that's if you can get together and mutually agree on a definition for these words that works with you, then you can kind of navigate this intense division that people have. And often that division is caused by, past pain occurrences. And I don't want to diminish that, that past experience of pain or trauma is a huge a driver for people. It does a lot, and it can do a lot on good, and it can do a lot on the other side. It can do a lot on bad. It can cause great destruction and lots of hurt and pain. But I'm kind of steering away from what I'm trying to talk about here. But again, compassion in a divided world.
Mm-hmm. No, I think
because we are very divided, and it is important to have that awareness of the suffering of other people, and I guess that's where compassion is different from sympathy and empathy, right? Because compassion is very specifically an understanding or awareness of suffering, whereas empathy and sympathy, well, sympathy is a little bit there too, because it's talking about feeling of pity or sorrow for another, whereas empathy is just feeling that. And then now that we kind of have a core term well defined, or I don't, I feel like I'm beating that one up and losing track of the concept. But that's also where I guess one of the things that I really enjoy and love about our discussions, because you and I, if they look at us, we're very different, and I mean, I don't feel we're that different, because as I talk to you, it's a smooth conversation, and sometimes there are core tenets or words that are not familiar to me. But when you express something in, is it Hindi that you're speaking, or what is the language that you usually use when you bring up these?
in Sri Lanka we use Sinhala, and there's Tamil, there's English, but those ancient things are usually from Pali or Sanskrit.
Okay. Yeah, and when you even just when you utter these phrases, when you say these phrases, it's like music, and I hear it, and that's why I asked you, what is that, or what did that mean, and ask you to repeat it, because it makes this nice little kind of bell go off in my head that's very similar to music, because I listen to music a lot. And I don't always listen to music for the words. It's just the places that these notes and these sounds
Thank you.
take me to, not mentally but physically too.
Uh-huh.
And then compassion in a divided world. Why this is so significant is because we are seeing an incredibly divided world, right? And the way I see the world being divided is between two big groups, right? There's a group trying to keep things the way they are, and they're kind of portrayed as conservative. They're resisting change because change brings change. and as things change, it compromises the ability of people to maintain control over the situation, and because that particular situation benefits them most. So resisting change is what, that's one part of this great divide. And then there's the other part of the great divide, which is, hey, change is inevitable. This is going to happen. this is how this looks going forward, and the other people are like, the conservative people are like, oh, I don't like that. It's foreign. It doesn't feel good to me, and I want to keep things here, not changing. And the reason, that frightens me, or the reason I don't, side with that conservative group, is that change is inevitable. It's like a force that's always going to occur. It's just the natural, right? Things grow, they get big, and then they there's a life expectancy, and then they die, and that's just a natural process. And keeping things from not changing is I don't want to say that, but it's crazy. It's like here's a I don't like standing on a train tracks and saying stop, because individually, an individual, you can't stop a train, right? And I look at change as that train. And I've stood on the train tracks before in different points in my life and just said, stop, or, this stop. And I just get run over, and it hurts. And in my experiences, those times when I try and stop that train, I just get run over, and then I scratch my head and think, wow, you see the train coming, and you stand there and you try and stop it, and of course you can't stop it. You have tons and tons of steel. There's steam coming out, and it's just gonna run you over, and that's why I personally avoid trying to stop progress and change, because regardless of whether or not you like it, it's going to happen, right? And you don't always see it's not always easy to see what the future, right? And sometimes it's impossible, because we kind of we think we know what's going to happen down those train tracks, but it isn't always predictable, and often it heads in directions that are very, very uncomfortable, and that require accepting change and stopping it, and stopping that change from occurring. I think is worse in the longer term than accepting that change is going to occur, and trying to manage or navigate it in a way that is constructive and healthy for you, and not destructive and very unhealthy, which is what I think occurs when you fight that change, right? Because change can bring great things. I mean, change can bring bad things too, but regardless, I think it's foolish to try and stand on those train tracks and say stop, because you're just going to get run over. And although I'm saying this, and I am speaking from my own personal experiences, but stopping change just seems counter against nature, because things change. I think that's a core tenet of life and experience is change happens, and how are you going to navigate that? And you want to try and navigate it by trying to understand how things are going to look in the future, making personal adjustments to avoid feeling that need to stand on that train track and trying to stop it. But bringing those two together, I mean, you don't have compassion for a train. Yeah, that sounds foolish. But as I was saying, we have these two divides. We have people, the conservative, trying to keep it trying to stifle change and keep things in a certain way that benefits them most, and that they can manage, and not just manage but control. And then we get into that topic of control, which I struggle with too. Maybe I should keep control for a whole other, we could get into control for hours and hours and hours, because I think control is fallacy. We don't control anything. All we control is our reaction to the thing. We don't control the thing itself. Anyway, Sanjay, I feel like I've kind of gone down 10 different little paths and not weaving anything in properly.
No.
And I was it gets bumpy, right? It's not perfect. It's not shiny.
So
it's
true.
not. We don't have these rooms with elaborate chairs, whatever that would look like. And I don't even like that concept too. And you guys jump in and correct me if you think I'm wrong on this, but I feel like some of the most interesting parts of our discussions are, and that's me and Sanji and and anyone else, is that complicated process of trying to find a way that we can communicate, like literally communicate. When I say communicate, I mean saying the things that resonate with each other. And it's clunky, it's very imperfect. And I relate more to that clunkiness and imperfection. And that makes me much more interesting to me than coming upon a discussion that is perfectly thought out and perfectly edited and shiny and just perfect, because that whole side of things doesn't really interest me, and not even doesn't really interest me. But the more shiny and polished it gets, the more I'm inclined to not trust it, because you see all this money being put into it, and you're like, where's that money going to? Like, we can do lots more than just creating this shiny studio space that makes other people comfortable. And jump in. I hope, like, if there's anything I say that doesn't resonate or doesn't make sense, or if I use a word that you're not clear on, jump in and ask me, please, because that's all part of this process. And very specifically with our topic today, it's compassion in a divided world. I think it's important to recognize, visualize these divisions, and because often these divisions are these big, huge, monolithic things that really aren't there. Just over the cost, that process of communicating, and then in communicating, sometimes you have to get really down to brass tacks. You're like, have to define words because the part of our discussion that you kind of missed, and it's not a good. I'm not like I'm thrilled to death that you came in at any point in this, Patricia. I'm so glad to see you here. Thank you, I'm not disappointed that you jumped in late. I'm just ecstatic that you're here. But sometimes you literally have to define terms, because what I was talking to Sanji was, I've had massive arguments with people, and the more I listen to the argument, I'll listen, and I listen to the energy more than the words, and I think I feel like we're not really arguing about these concepts that we're talking about. They're other things. They're other. And the example I use for Sanji, like past experiences that influence our perspective on what a word is supposed to mean, but we're arguing over this thing, and it's not really the thing we're arguing about. So it's important, this notion of compassion in a divided world, to understand that certain concepts actually resonate with all of us and are important to all of us, and we have much more commonalities than these divisions that are being created. And often they're artificial divisions, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're very personal. It's just that the concepts aren't well defined. And I hesitate when I say things like well defined, because you get wordy, and when you get wordy and start saying things like we have to define our concepts well so that we're communicating about the same thing, I feel when I say something like that, people are going to start sleeping or grab their phones and start playing on their phones, you know. But so we started talking about, or I started talking about, defining our concept. What is compassion? No, what does, I mean, is compassion something you're using in your work right now, Patricia?
Patricia.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, it's part of it. I've got a sort of like a list of different topics that I engage on, whether it's family, whether it's effective communication, whether it's mental health, understanding different people. I think was it last week? Was it last week we spoke about expectations with Sanji, what not to expect from other people, because sometimes we may not give back that it's about I have about 9 topics. Sorry, I might and not know all of them off by head, but compassion is one of them. I think it sort of aligns with empathy or sympathy sometimes, depending
Yes.
on the context of what one is talking about. You can
Sure.
have compassion on probably someone who's, I guess, going through something. Sorry, I'm trying to put my thoughts
Well, no, and
as we
I'll tell you,
speak.
I looked this up. No, because I looked it up, because I wanted to have this with a little bit more structure, because it's very easy for
Okay.
me to just talk, and
Yeah.
I do love talking and sharing ideas with Sanji. And I know I would have the same thing. I'd love to sit down and just listen to you and hear what you say and listen to the cadence and tone in which you're saying. And often I even like close my eyes because the visual aspect of things distracts me. Whereas when people talk, I really feel, I like feeling the energy and vibe in which people are discussing things, and then and how it resonates with me. And so I will, again, I'll close my eyes because the visual aspect interferes with my ability to feel that energy and vibe. And I'm sorry, I'm losing my track here, but then it goes to
It's
compassion.
okay.
I remember. Yeah, so I looked up. I got a working definition of compassion. It's deep awareness of the suffering of another and the wish to relieve it. Okay, and I'm glad you brought up those other concepts, also sympathy and empathy, because
Yes.
they're related, but they're not synonymous. They don't mean the same
True.
thing. And then I started talking a little bit about sympathy and empathy, and that's a big one too, because I've gotten into arguments about the concept of compassion, and I've gotten into arguments about the concepts of empathy, and and the difference between sympathy and empathy. And it is, well, it's important to understand the concepts. It's also easy to let a discussion of those concepts kind of derail the discussion, which I don't necessarily want to do. And while I am kind of a host and a chair of this, I really see myself more as a funnel. I like getting people to understand and listen to Sanji, and I would love to have people in here to listening and understanding you. And in this process of defining concepts and what they mean to each of us, you start to kind of lower the the topic of our conversation is compassion in a divided world. You start to kind of like break down these huge divisions, which aren't necessarily divisions and aren't even real sometimes. Sometimes these are artificial constructs. But and I've taken this down this weird route. But can you like compassion and sympathy and empathy? What does empathy mean for you, Patricia? And also, include it in how it relates to the work that you're trying to do.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity once again. So sympathy, I guess it's sympathizing. For example, if someone has lost someone or something, I don't, in my perspective, feel it's I'm trying to kind of explain it in concept of what I do, because there's a lot of self-reflection. There are some people who don't sympathize with people, not that they are bad people, but sometimes that's how they choose to deal with things. Or if someone is grieving, they do not know how to react, they do not know how to sympathize. Showing empathy, I guess it's the emotional side of I kind of feel like empathy, maybe compassion, kind of,
Well,
they might
empathy
not
is
have the
actually
same
it's like
definition, but
where you feel, where you're actually
you feel,
feeling.
yes.
Or I mean, yeah, and like when they get into technical definitions, they're saying sharing. But I guess when I say sharing, I'm thinking of eating a pie, and here you have a bite of the pie, and I'm gonna have a bite of the pie too.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like share is the right word, because you're actually feeling that which other people are feeling. So
Yes.
that's and I've gotten into big arguments over that word. And but it's a very important thing also, because I was saying to Shanchi, we actually have a part of our brain that registers and works on empathy, that concept of
Yes.
actually feeling what someone else is feeling.
Is feeling. Yes. So true. So true.
And please, no, yeah.
Oh, so sorry about that. Sorry about that.
Before I like clunkiness, Patricia and Son. I like perfection bores me and is bad, and it's important that people see, hey, everything isn't perfect and shiny.
So
like
true. Yeah,
like it's like in to breaking down these big cultural divides. You have to see the process of people like clunkily working over obstacles, and sometimes the obstacle is just like a mutual understanding of a word or a concept. and not just mutual understanding, but like when we communicate and communicate, so like defining communicate, it isn't just me saying something to you, it's me saying something that resonates with you, and that makes your chest or your like this little part right here on top of my head tingles, when I'm getting that point of communication and resonance, and that's what is important to me. That's what communication is, right? Saying something that's and I'll say, and again, I like the clunkiness. I like the awkwardness, because in and if I had my druthers, which is a weird English phrase, if I had it the way I wanted it, I would prefer that these recordings go unedited, right? Because it's I think it's so important for people to see that there's a process, right, at overcoming awkwardness and finding common ground. and it isn't natural, right? Because we come from very different cultural backgrounds, and just the same word will mean very different things to us.
So true.
And I feel like I keep on interrupting you, Patricia.
Oh no,
And
it's okay, sir. I totally, it's okay.
mm,
I think you had asked how, I guess, compassion and empathy and sympathy kind of work hand in hand with what I do most of the time, because my page, or it's a non-judgmental space. Yes, I people, when they hear the title Etiquette of Life, they sometimes think it's about manners, talking well, speaking well. It's quite broad, it's quite wide. I sometimes put a situation where it leaves people reflecting, give different options, because sometimes we do have the answers, but you are kind of clouded with your own, I guess, way of thinking, which is not bad.
mhm,
So when it comes to compassionate empathy, sympathy, I tend to give real life situations, a number of them, just for people to kind of take time to reflect. Oh, okay, take time to have a moment, like, okay, if I was in that situation, how would I react, or how would the next person react? Sometimes people are battling with mental health issues, or it's traumas, past traumas. That's sometimes, for example, they might not have the empathy for the next person, but sometimes not always the reason. It depends on the context or the person. So I tend to like to give scenarios or situations, or speak about the realities that most of the times would shy away from discussing. But I don't know. I'm fascinated about being real, because sometimes if I tell myself, oh, I'm this perfect person, I don't make mistakes, even if I make mistakes, oh, it wasn't your fault. I'm just portraying this human being that does not exist, because I will make mistakes, I will hurt the next person. And the importance is to take accountability, whether that person um accepts my apology, or I'm so big on reflecting on myself every
mm,
time. So when I speak about those things, when I pose questions or scenarios, or an encouraging message, at
mhm.
that moment I'm also encouraging myself, because I don't know if people have noticed, I don't say what are you doing? I say, what are we doing? What are you thinking? What are your views? How would we view this? Because the person writing, or the quote that I'm writing, is a human being. It's not a robot that doesn't have emotions or feelings or go through things. When the next person is hurting, it hurts me, but it's not, it might be different from Sanji, it might be different from you, sir, or how you respond when someone has lost something, or someone is excited about something. You might not be yay, or someone will be like, oh, okay, that's fine. And you're like, okay, why are you not excited? That's how they express themselves. And trying to understand both parties, like, okay, why did they react that way? Why are they not excited for me? I'm not sure if that
I
answers or
follow.
clarifies the
No, I'm
question.
following you.
Yeah.
No, and one
Yeah.
thing though, you I took note earlier. I was just looking at that because you did bring up something, and I think it's very important, and you kind of touch on it also, and it's dealing with that feeling of being uncomfortable, you know,
Mm.
and um, and the closest, that in order to portray that in a way that other people can kind of understand what I'm trying to say is, I'll bring in an example of like the uncomfortable process of learning a new language, right? Because it's hard, and when you're trying to formulate words that aren't natural to you, or just like your actual name, um, that process of trying to get a concept out of your mouth that is foreign puts you in this uncomfortable space, and and, I think that is very similar to in the way it makes you feel of uh, talking about things emotional that make you feel uncomfortable. And I think in order to actually do the work we want to do, we almost have to stay away. We have to dive into that uncomfortableness, right?
Yes.
You really, it's not something you really like acknowledge that it's the elephant in the room, but like
Yes.
party with elephants, right? Don't make these big circles around it. Don't like, oh God, like let's not look at that. Yeah, it's here, but
Yeah, let's forget about it.
make big, like let's set up tea around the elephant and engage the elephant. Let's tackle it. Let's not make it something that we have to avoid. I think for progress, and that's a big thing, because progress means different things, to different people. But in order to really do the effective work that we need to do, and I don't want to get so nebulous, we have to attack that, dealing with that feeling of uncomfortability, and that kind of ties into what I'm saying. I like the clunkiness. I like that awkwardness, because these are spaces where we're not comfortable, and the process of working through that discomfort, and finding these places where we actually communicate, where I say something that means something to you, Patricia, and means something to Sanji, and then we're creating true good communication, and we're getting to points where we're getting to these divides, and divides aren't just cultural; they're internal as well, and they like these things. Not dealing with these things, not dealing with that elephant, impede real progress, and that, I think, that means also impede healing. Does Sanji, is anything I'm saying resonate with you or make sense to you? Do you have some handy Sanskrit phrases which fit in perfectly?
No, so like we stick into the topic. So it was like compassion in the divided world. So I would like to ask you both, what do you think like the divisions are? Patty and Scott, please refer to. Patty, what do you
Oh,
think like the difference?
Patty, no, jump in, Patty, if that rings a bell on you, or that makes if that's something you'd be comfortable talking about right now.
Surely, like Patty, your mic.
Oh, okay. Oof. Okay, I'll be honest. I had
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
I had
Oh,
not
yeah, no, and that's
processed.
fine. Yeah.
I had not processed. I don't know if there's just a moment
Okay,
for me
but
just to
I'm
gather
just
my
asking
thoughts.
like, what do you feel like the divisions are? For example, gender, right? Gender, or like Scott mentioned, like culture or countries. No, these are also divisions, right? They are in the same map, but
Yes.
borders and all this stuff, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Likewise,
I can jump in real quick, and you might not have been here on this, but Patricia, because I didn't make a mental note when I saw you pop into the conversation about where we were and what you might have heard and what you hadn't heard. But when I was talking about Sanji, about a divided world, I felt that you know I don't know how much attention people in South Africa are paying to current politics in the U.S., right? But there's a big election in the U.S. Someone was elected that a lot of people didn't think was going to be elected, and I personally am seeing huge divisions in the world right now, and I'm seeing this on a macro level. Excuse me, and these divisions I feel are a result of two kind of philosophical looks. There's a very conservative approach on my side, conservative, fill in the blank there, and Okay, yeah, and I want to avoid the words that everyone uses in the U.S. The conservatives and the progressives, and I see the conservatives trying to keep things the same, and the progressives looking at change and working on how things are changing, constantly changing, and how to deal with that change and how it works with them. And I feel that that is the the big primary monstrous chasm right now. You know, there's and what we see primarily in the U.S. right now is a turn back on trying to keep things the same and not changing because and it's very simple. You know, at least in my mind, I see. You know, in the world right now, we're seeing this rate of change that's dramatic and unprecedented in our history. The rate of change, if you put it on a scale, it's not geographic. You know, it's hit this point of inflection that's hard, and there's so much change that it rattles people um, and makes things unsure, uncertain, and it creates instability in their lives. Whereas I feel that change is an inevitability, and I think the progressives are the symbol of that change to conservatives. So you have these two factions, of the trying to keep things the same and trying to control because the change represents difference and something that's not understood, and it's going, and so that's how I kind of saw this divide. And did any of that make any sense to you, Patricia? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. It made so much sense. And I would like to add on something about change that you spoke about, because change is uncomfortable. When you need to change something, it requires getting out of your comfort zone. And getting out of your comfort zone is tough. I think it takes you to places of fear, of learning, of growth, but it has got it on stages, like from moving from your comfort zone to your fear zone. There's uncertainty, there are things that might take you back to your comfort zone. But in your fear zone, you start to learn things, you start to rediscover stuff that, what, it's actually not as bad as I thought. But when you're in that moment of change, because you're familiar, change is comfort, change is a familiar place where I know from the room I'm going to the bathroom or the kitchen. But if it's a new, totally new environment or space or whatever change it is, it's not easy. It's uncomfortable. You have to learn and learn things, fear, doubt. But I do believe it's possible through, I guess, one's attitude of, okay, I want to make a positive impact or a positive change. Let me get out of my comfort zone. Let me try the scariest things. Let me go to that mountain that people say, what, it takes 20 hours. I can try, whether it takes me 21 hours, but challenging yourself, because change is always uncomfortable. So I totally understand and agree with that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, do you feel change is inevitable?
I think it depends on the context. It usually takes me a moment, but I think it is depending on I guess what I think you spoke about the US and the voting and where people's headspace currently is. I do see it, I guess, even in Africa, this side, it could be something that could be a challenge in change. I don't know if people are scared of change, or change is something that takes a moment to get to that space of saying, you know what, let me tackle it regardless of whether it's easy or it's hard.
I guess
But yeah, yes.
the place I'm coming from is that you spoke of that idea of comfort zones, right? Um, and I'm not going to, I speak very anecdotally. I do love science and digging in science, but it doesn't mean anything if you can't process it in a way that means something to you. But I've gotten to this point in my life where these comfort zones, I look at as traps, right? Because we have that innate desire, like when you sit down, just in the process of sitting down, you want to be comfortable. It's natural, right?
Yes.
You don't want to sit down on rocks, right? You're like, that's not comfortable. I'm sitting on 4 cushions right now. I want to be comfortable, and so we do have that innate desire, which isn't crazy, of being comfortable, but and it might be a time thing, but that zone of comfort is also ultimately a trap, right? Because you get locked into it, and then I think that point at which maintaining your level of comfort ultimately can be destructive. So and I'm saying this because I feel sorry for my kids sometimes, because I see them getting very comfortable. I'll go shake it, and whether it's their chair or their world or their perception or their video game, I try and shake it, not too violently, but like get out of that comfort zone, because ultimately you just start making decisions that aren't necessarily good for you or good for the future or good for lots of things. Your whole decision making process is made to maintain your comfort, and then that comfort zone can kind of become a bubble, right? And when you have that comfort and bubble, then you want to keep it, and people do things like I live in Texas, where it gets hot, and I go to the grocery store and I see people in their cars parked with the engine running, their windows rolled up, and they're sitting in air conditioning, right? And the most important thing, or the other thing that drives me nuts, and this will not resonate with any other American, like drive-throughs. You go to a restaurant and you order at this thing, and you drive a little bit, you drive, and you come to a window, you pay, and these things are created to maintain this level of comfort. Like, people are uncomfortable getting out of their car, parking, get out of their car, walking, ordering, talking to someone else, ordering at a counter, waiting for a couple minutes. And I guess my point in all of this this short discourse is that I see these 2 examples of maintaining comforts, and those are maintaining your physical comfort. You don't want to expose yourself to the heat of the outside, but the decisions you're making, sitting in your car while it's running, and making your air conditioner play, or sitting in your car so you don't have to park and get up. You're maintaining a level of comfort, but that maintaining that comfort it's bad. That those comforts are bad for the environment. You're keeping your car on. You're increasing your CO2 emissions, which are in turn very, very destructive for the environment. So people will make these short-term decisions to maintain that comfort. Like it's very important. It's most important to be comfortable. Whereas that's just I feel it's a trap, because when you're trying to maintain your comfort, you're not looking at other things, which will take you outside of that comfort. It's like, get acquainted. I want to scream. Like, it's okay to not be comfortable. It's okay for us to have these clunky moments in our discussions where we're like, I'm not sure what's being said, but let's keep on working towards a place where we're actually communicating, where we're actually understanding what each other is saying, where we're actually things. It's not just understanding on that definition hard level, but resonating, and where the energy, our energies are kind of. No, that's not a concept or thought I've really thought of that well, but just so that we're truly communicating and we're truly getting to a better place. So I guess it's just a long-winded way of saying the comfort zone is evil. It's evil, and when I see or sense people steering away from that white elephant, I want to grab them, like, no, let's sit down, let's make tea, let's party with the elephant, let's not make this division, let's not make this something, or let's address it, like addressing that discomfort. Like, it's you talk to people and you sense it, right, Patricia? Like, you can tell by little, people clinch up or they stare away, or maybe they just break down and start crying. They want to avoid that feeling of being uncomfortable. But I think it's the phrase that keeps on popping up in my head is, I think it's a fool's errand. If you only stay in that place where everyone is comfortable, I don't feel that anything's ever actually going to get done. And it's not just on the micro level, but on the macro level too. I think it's, down from simple conversations between you, me, and Sanji to bigger things going on in the world. Yeah, Sanji, anything? What do you think about?
Yeah, so in a very simple sense, we are talking about compassion and divisions, right? Today,
Yeah.
all these are included. So I was listening to you all. So what about defiance, right? So for example, in our mind, we have defilements, anger, greed, delusion, these kind of things, jealousy, and envy. So if we don't have a resistance or something on, do we let our emotions or negatives take part? So in coaching life, I just feel I'm just trying to bring a different angle, different perspective, and I want to see everything in different ways. No, in meditation also they say when you go to insight meditation, you just don't see it one way. You see it from different angles as well as you go into the depth of things. I remember one guy, a young man, so he said like one kind of strategy in the world is just spiral. So it just goes on and on. So I just told I was a little person at that time, just like now. But then I said like, okay, even a child can think, like if it's a coil, why not you turn it this way? It's a cycle, right? If you see it in one direction, it will be a coil, right? That goes continuously up, maybe. So this is some legit method that is used in society today, yeah, and in the past. But it's not just one way of seeing it, no. So the same spiral, if you look it in this direction, because he was telling like everything cannot sustain because in a cycle it appears and it disintegrates, so it gets destroyed. But he said this system only it goes spirally. But if you take it and see it from the upper side, it also becomes a spiral. No? So what I'm just trying to say is like if for example in the war scenario, say Second World War, and if you just let the train just come in, I'm not telling names or sides or anything. And if people didn't sacrifice and do so many things, uh, so then maybe this world could not even see peace. So if you just let some dictatorship or something, I'm not telling names or anything in any country, no, because these are like common aspects in all places, no, in maybe America, Africa, Asia, wherever, no, maybe in another universe even. Huh? So even in our
Mhm.
minds, right? Like if you let something dictate, which is negative, and if we don't stand for it, then what happens is like it will just overpower us, and then we say, okay, the train is there, and it just crushed me. And when it can happen, but we stand up again and again and again and again, and we build the resistance for that, right? And the
Mhm.
positive forces come up. So that's why how good prevails to the date and in the future. Huh? So when we come to divisions, yeah, there are very simple examples. So I'll like spread the time between you all, also you just give your viewpoints and everything. So it was mentioned as a white piece of paper. White means it's also blank piece of paper. eh. So you draw one line with a pencil or a pen, then there are two sides, right? If you do, no,
Mhm.
there are four sides. But this is a blank piece of paper. More lines you draw, more divisions it becomes, right? But these are just maybe pencil marks. So within the course of time, these will disappear. Or you can start erasing them. So in spirituality also what happens, we okay, the lines are there. Uh, we don't want to erase them, but we see through them or beyond them to just to know, okay, the piece of paper was blank all the time. Even in the lines when they are like covering the piece of paper, the blank piece of paper, yet that's why they can be erased, right? If it was
Mhm.
permanent, okay, even if you use a permanent mark, at some point it will start disappearing. Or there's a specific type of chemical or something, you can let it disappear. There's like ink removers, no? Or ladies, like they'll remove polish removers, right? So yeah,
Yes.
there are, no? So, maybe 100 years from now, all these lines that were maybe even drawn with golden ink, they also start disappearing. So if we know this concept, we will honor the good things, even like okay, gender roles, right? Like Patricia and me were discussing, right? So
Yep.
how male, female, and all these children should know the good things or duties or anything like that, right? Proper things.
Yeah.
Don't to just say, oh, women, you should do this, men, you should do this. This is what you have to do. No, not like that. No, everybody can do this kind of stuff. But we respect each other, and we are like in the equal sense of value, uh, not on power, right? Then power means like what they are expecting now. So we value those, but in all, we can be all human. We can be in different three places, right? Or different countries, but we all are in the human race. So likewise, we can come to that in deep. You go beyond this, for example, like materiality, mentality, and you even the piece of paper, you go beyond that. So then the lines above that really doesn't matter even. You will respect them, but still, okay, I want to have mutual respect, and I hand it over to you all also. So please
Yeah.
express how you feel about it, what you think. I want to bring it in a broad spectrum than to a specific country or something. So what do you all also feel about it? Sometimes I add a pinch of salt or
No,
of
no,
that.
I like no. That's
Make it
great,
more
Sanjay,
spicy.
and I like what you brought because the divides I'm perceiving are not necessarily that's me and my perception. And you said that in your conversation with Patricia, you guys talked about a divide in terms of, I guess, and I might not say this well, divides between the roles of men and women, and that being a big source of division. Patricia? Can you pick up on that? Is that something that one of the big divides that you're seeing right now?
Yes, it is. We're talking about the importance of chores. Like they are not, in my
Chores,
perspective,
like yeah, like
like chores. Like
Okay.
chores, different kinds of
Yeah.
chores shouldn't only be based on gender, but they should be taken as a life skill for everyone. For example, as a lady, if I've got a tire puncture in town or in a deserted place, and I have the skill to change it, I should be able to do it regardless that I'm a lady. And men participating in roles that are known for being ladies, not for gender equality, but just to have an idea of a life skill. If you don't like that, you can take that as therapy, take care of your garden. I gave an example, like if you're only blessed with girls, if the light bulb goes off, do you really need to bring in the guy who can fix it? Just look for a ladder or a chair, you can change the light bulb. It's just the small little things, how we can teach our children, teach people around us that charity begins at home, how you choose to take care of yourself. If you're blessed with boys and they want to eat, they should know how to cook. They should at least have a skill of cooking, preparing. Now technology has advanced, there are air fryers, pressure cookers, so much dishwashers, washing machines. It makes life easier for everyone. So I don't in my view, it was more of an encouraging place that it starts from a young age. Children put the toys away, they should learn because life happens. Tomorrow you're sick, or tomorrow, unfortunately, what if you pass on? If that person cannot take care of themselves, whether you go to foster care or you have to start staying with relatives, some of them will expect you to at least make your bed. If you grew up your whole life, they're making the bed for you. One day the the person who's been making that bed for you is sick, or they are gone, or they're not able to do it. So it was from an encouraging place that there's no harm in me finding me in the garden. It's normal. I guess it goes with the cultural background of how we're raised, that it doesn't matter who you are. If you're a man, you can be found in the kitchen cooking, wear your apron. Everyone eats. Ladies, you are found under the car changing the tire. It's not even a question of do you want to do it, you are doing it. So for some people it might be a bit of cultural differences, that, oh no, ladies are stuck to the plates, the cooking, taking care of the kids. But I feel like if there's teamwork and working together, involve the kids, let them understand, oh, the lady can take out the trash can. It shouldn't be like, oh, it's just for the man. Yes, probably certain manly stuff might be hard, but if you help each other, if there's teamwork, then it makes that easier. And sometimes we feel like, oh, my kids, it's a burden on them. Life moves by so fast. When we start
Yeah.
teaching them as teenagers, it's so tough because they're dealing with hormones, and they'll be asking, where have you been as a parent all this while, or your guardian, whoever you're taking care of. I'm not in the headspace of fixing my bed. So if we kind of train them at a young age, they adapt and get used to, oh, I have to fix my bed. I have to clean my after myself. It's like a life skill. It's not going to be, oh, mommy's around, or dad is around, or uncle or grandpa is around all the time.
Yeah.
So yes.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, and it's something that I hadn't been considering, but something I see, because you bring up like the notion of changing a tire, and you do see that divide. I remember my mother talking about, how important, basically how important it is to know how to change a tire. And because, if you're driving by yourself, if you're a woman driving by yourself down a highway remote, and your tire blows out, and okay, and I'll bring along, the contemporary problem with that, and say you aren't in cell phone range, so you can't just call someone. You are you actually going to sit there and just wait? or are you going to get out there and change it yourself? And yeah, it just kind of boggles my mind that people will allow these cultural notions to interfere with their life, because when you're driving down the road, you're trying to get to the destination, and if you have a flat tire, that's an inconvenience. It's preventing you from getting your destination when your goal is you want to get there, but there's this little inconvenience that's preventing you from doing that, and inconvenience is I guess more or less also a culturally imposed thing, which these notions kind of aggravate me, because these are things that are people allow this cultural notion to impede their ability to get to their destination, you know? And I guess I'm surprised, and I don't know why I'm surprised, that that notion is so entrenched in South African society. Like there are these very, very clear gender roles, which I feel in the long run get in your way. They impede progress, and so what you're talking about and what you're trying to help people with is of extreme importance and profound importance, because ultimately these things get in your way. No, don't you feel? I mean, please go ahead.
Oh yes, they do. I do feel like sometimes we take life for granted, that um parents will always be around or family will always be around. But sometimes there are certain situations where you realize you're all alone. Misfortunes, like I said earlier, they happen to all of us at any time. And this is kind of like a way of just uh, you don't prepare these life skills for misfortunes, but to be able to take care of yourselves, take care of yourself, sorry, because some people have the notion of, oh, if you're a lady, you should learn these different skills, cooking, cleaning, so that when you get married, it's not everyone wants to get married. Some people choose not to get married, but you should be able to take care of yourself. If you choose to stay alone, some people, yes, are fortunate to have helpers, but not everyone is fortunate. So if you have to do what you have to do, you take it. Yeah, some of the chores are boring, we might not like them, but you realize they have to be done. That's just part of life. Some of them are therapy. It could be the garden, it could be cooking, it could be cleaning, but you should be able to do it. You should, in the event or life takes you to places where it's unpredictable, unknown, you be able to manage on your own, or you have to live with family. Some people expect you to wake up and fix your bed. So if you have no idea, it traces back to how you've been brought up, how simple thing as just fixing your bed, you should not be told, but you genuinely not know because it's been done for you your whole life. So imagine at my age, I'm learning how to wash plates now. I feel like, okay, why are they torturing me? But it's a life skill that I should know. I want to eat, so I should be able to cook and clean. Simple goes to men, not that like, even if you choose to get married, even cleaning after yourself, take the plate to the sink, the simple things, as that it brings teamwork, because the cultural impression, or the cultural idea that is known is, oh, you are the husband, you are just the provider. It goes beyond providing financially. It goes even for the partner. If you both of you are providing financially, yes, there are different roles that are known, but sometimes if you work as a team, it helps with that sort of that burden, or it brings a balance. I don't know if making any
No,
sense.
you're making no.
But
Everything you're saying, it resonates with me, and
yeah.
I love you that you're saying it. Um, but I mean, you don't you just want to scream at people sometimes and say, just wash your dishes, you know. If you're hungry, eat. Why are you staring at me? The goal is to not be hungry. So reach into the fridge, grab something, and eat it. You know,
So true.
why and or are you literally just going to stare at me and get hungry and hungry and then starve because I'm not making a nice little sandwich for you or making a nice little curry with steamed rice or whatever, you know.
So true.
Yeah, it's a primary importance that
And I see like
people.
some discussions and all, like podcasts, even like interviews, street interviews. And some people like they say, I don't want to do anything. No, I would not do anything for my woman. I didn't want to. They just say this like this. So, or my
Oh,
man.
really?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
really. Even in America, so it's not just one side I see. Even in here, no, Asian countries,
Mm,
the new generations, and they say, I won't do
mm,
anything. No, if my man wants to send something to eat in the morning or something, he comes after 14-hour shift. No, he can eat a dream if he wants. They say, I will turn the opposite side and sleep. But they in some places, like in the dating preferences, they say, I want a guy who's like 6 feet or more. Yeah, and then I want like six figures. Then they ask like, what are you going to bring? I bring myself, no? And then they ask like, what do you bring? So they put like the makeup prices, no? So like it took, I don't know what they call it. Your filler took this much, so this much it's $20, and then well, lip gloss. I don't know. They said a list of stuff. So then they said, then they ask like, is it for you or is it for this person? No. Uh, so, but it cost me, they
Yeah.
say, no? So some people say on a first date, I cannot go to a cheap place, no? I cannot just go for a walk. I have to go to a luxurious place, no? Like a five-star or so. These are things we see every place, yeah? And then people have these demands, and then like how they feel entitled, right? So even children we see, like, oh, mom has to do this, father has to do this, no? So I'm not supposed
mm,
to do this. But when you
Mm-hmm.
like train people, for example, if guys can cook, you don't have to worry, right? And then, oh, you don't have to come home and like start a fight, no? Or it doesn't make you feminine, no, masculine or anything, right? It's like, okay,
mm,
you're okay, like a girl can change a tire, right? So, and I encourage some people, like younger ones and all, like when they talk with families and all, I say, why don't you teach your daughter some martial arts? Because you never know, no, in modern society, not to fight each other. If somebody comes like in a threatening way, at least you can escape without getting caught and say get your whole life tormented, right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean only the guys can learn this, no? But there are like plenty of
mm,
girls like learning these things. So in a way, it's like survival. You never know, no? Some drug addict or somebody with a mental issue or no, something or in an abusive way. Even if
Mm-hmm.
they are married or something. Or like you were saying, then they go on the highway and the tire pops up, and uh, then you are stranded there. And if somebody, at least you can escape, no, from that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So if we know many things, so the divisions they apply to all scenarios, all places, and if we can go above and beyond those hurdles or restrictions, uh, then we can do a lot of things.
Restrictions, yeah, yeah. The titles restrictions are impediments, you know, and divides, and I think the goal should be number one, recognizing um, that there's a divide or an impediment, and number two, making it like, and when I bring these things up, you know, I'm also thinking of that impediment or divide as something that's not allowing progress to be made, you know. Like it's getting in the way of life, right? Like if you're sitting there waiting for someone to make food for you, you know, you should starve, I guess. I don't know. You like learn to cook, learn to eat. Yeah, is that harsh, Patricia? I mean, I don't mean starve,
No,
but
not at all. Not at all.
like, come on, you know, learn how to change your
Yeah,
tire, or man, take 5 minutes and teach woman
yeah.
how to simply change tire because it's not brain surgery. You know, there's jack, boom, boom, boom. Just because there's this cultural notion that a woman shouldn't be there getting her hands dirty while changing a tire is just foolish because changing a tire, like not having that tire change, is preventing you from moving on, not just down the road, but also in life as well. I mean, it's not just that one moment, but that same notion is going to prevent true progress, I feel. Yeah, Patricia, anything? Yeah. Did you
Oh,
have
sorry.
any thoughts? No, that's good. Do you have any thoughts there? Or and please don't, like, if you disagree with anything I'm ever saying, say, Scott, you're wrong.
The hammer.
Yes, yes.
I'm feeling my way out, and my
Yes,
experience
yes.
isn't everyone's experience. You know,
Man,
I
so
speak in my
true.
head.
So true. I totally agree with that. I think sometimes tough love, sorry, I think I've been diverting the whole time, but tough love sometimes is required. It takes uh putting putting the emotional part and saying, you know what is best, how best is it to tackle this, or how best is it to go about this. So if you choose, or if you decide that, okay, I'm gonna give a bit of tough love and say, you know what, if you're able to cook on your own,
Yeah.
then you can do it. Sometimes I think it's in our mind, because you tell yourself, if probably it's in a marriage or relationship set up, you tell yourself, oh, I've got a partner, so they're gonna cook. But if you're
Mhm.
staying alone, you realize whether you choose to live on takeaways all the time,
Yeah.
and that's entirely up to the person. But I try to, I'm a very diplomatic talker. I struggle hurting
That's
people's
good.
feelings,
No,
but
that's good
sometimes,
because I'm glad. Like,
yeah.
I'm not a diplomatic thinker, and because I choose words. I'm a push envelope kind of person. You know, when you
Yes,
that
yes.
divide, when you see the elephant, I'm like, no, let's not run away from this,
No, yeah.
or I'm gonna step on toes. You know, I'm gonna
So
shake the
true.
tree, like, because things are getting in your way and preventing you from actually accomplishing the things you need to accomplish in order to get
So
life
true.
taken care of. Um,
Mm.
and Sanji, yeah, and we're kind of getting to the point now where we've been on here for about 2 hours. Sanji, are you there? Are you
Yes.
listening? And is it? Yeah. Is it too late to do a meditation now, Sanji? Or
Shall we take it to a next day, Scott?
yeah, well, yeah, we could, but I mean, this is one of these things that we could go on and on, and I don't know if the topic or would still be resonating at a later point. You
Uh,
know, but if we're at, I mean, I think we,
like 5 minutes
just for time's sake, we
meditation.
should wrap up. Hmm?
Uh, 5 minutes meditation. Eh? How about that,
Yeah,
Patty? Just five
Yeah,
minutes. Eh?
five. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
5 minutes works better.
Then we'll wrap
okay,
it up
good.
for today. And the
Yes,
next, we have another, Patty. We would love to have you also there. It will be about, yeah, environment, and there could be a lady who also will participate. Eh? Uh,
hmm,
yeah, just 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and then we'll finish it
perfect.
off. So,
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, I think here. It's like 10 p.m. So we just sit comfortably, and just 5 minutes. So since we were talking about compassion, there's a very simple meditation. So wherever you are, on a chair or a couch or a comfortable seat, just sit there. And it's better to like close your eyes. I'm on my meditation place actually, so it's convenient. So just close your eyes and try to relax, relieve all the muscles in the body. So today we were talking about compassion. So number one thing, we have to have compassion towards ourselves. So it all starts with the individual. So take your framework of the body, know exactly where your head is, the face is, the neck, the shoulders, the arms, how they are placed. Maybe they are placed on your lap, maybe on your knees. Your palms are touching the knees, or they are resting on your thighs. You are seated upright, and then you feel you're sitting comfortably, and all the way down, you feel if you're seated on a chair, you'll feel the touch of the floor. You're seated on a cushion, maybe the way your feet are placed there. But just know, as if you take a pencil and draw all around the parameter of your body. And take a few deep breaths and just let everything just drop out. Just relax. And it's so simple. This is just one, this is an ancient method, and it says dukkha munchatu. Dukkha munchatu. Sometimes the terminology, like you are speaking, one word has many meanings, and many meanings has uh, many words, or one word even for that matter. So it vice versa, right? So dukkha, some people in some languages use it as suffering, but it has a bigger, huge, massive meaning in ancient times. So it's really to know what we are going through and all beings around us, even animals or everybody, humans, animals, even the trees, the environment, everything, how it is, how it's feeling, how it's affected. And it's like you're all connected and everything's alive. And from the depths of your heart, just think, may I be free from suffering. Use in any terminology. Because sometimes people don't take the word suffering. They think like somebody in a very bad state is suffering. I am not suffering. No, it just can be just like, oh, I'm sitting here. How long should I sit? Or is it late for me now? Or do I have to do this? Or something that matters to you, something that will happen in the future, or you have to do few minutes from now. Maybe I have to look after my kids, or this problem I have to solve, things I have to think. It can be mental, it can be physical, or after this I have to work. Anything can be applied or put under the topic of some kind of pain or agitation, irritation, uncomfort. So we go through that. It could be health wise or as things we don't expect. Anything that is really present there. So just think with all of your heart, may I be free from suffering. Use any language. More you use your mother tongue, more familiar it is. And it's just a two-letter word in ancient language, but it has a massive meaning. From the simplest of maybe a common cold, or you can move your arm or leg if you want to, or you are not getting something you expect, or even to the cycle of death, birth and death, or until the pure stages of like enlightenment. This goes far. So it is said, first practice many times on yourself. It's like a cleansing process. And then say, Take a person whom you know. It could be a relative, it could be a child, it could be anybody, a person whom you know is in hospitalized or who's suffering, who could be poor. And actually, that person will start helping us. And just 100% honestly think, may this person be free from suffering. May this person be free from suffering. That's the best way to bring this meditation powerfully. And then slowly widen your horizons. May my family members be free from any kind of discomfort or suffering. May the people in this neighborhood be free from suffering. May the people of this community, may the people of this city, state, may the people of this country, because many people are going through different things. And then finally, may the people of this entire, or may all beings, even animals, no, they are suffering so much. But this is not a negative aspect. This is not a negative aspect. Sadness and fear is a negative. So compassion means like it is not feeling sad actually. You feel it, but you want to do something positive about it. Even if you have nothing to do, you just bring out the intention of your intention. May they be free from suffering. But don't restrain yourself. Say, okay, I thought that. I have spoken to people like that. They say, oh, I thought and I sent her the positive vibes. Well, that is not enough. Now, if you can do more. There was a person, so it was a very gross incident. And I said, we try to help, no physically also. So she said, no, I could not do. I was more traumatized than her. And I sent her positive vibes. So if you had positive vibes, you won't be traumatized, right? So there are people like that. I have really spoken to people like that. But why not give her some water, no, and save her, take her to some authority that can help? She had not done that. So we can do so much things even in a simple way. So make compassion prevail, and we don't have to we can have some resistance or defiance on the negatives, especially outside and inside of our minds. And we covered a lot of aspects in this our wonderful gathering. And then let us wish peace, happiness, and wellness to all. So thank you so much, Scott, for being the host today, and Patricia adding so much value. So I wish you everybody and everybody who sees this the very best, and hope we all can join again and again and discuss this wholesome topic. So for next time we have a beautiful topic about the environment, like global warming. So hopefully our coaches also can attend, and wish you all. It could be different time zones, different places. For Scott, it's morning time. For Patricia, evening. For me, it's night time. So we are all from. It's like a complete scenario, no, of life and situations. So okay, have a beautiful day, whichever place you are, whichever country. So thank you all. Have a blessed day. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Sanji. Thank you, Pat, for coming.
Thank you, Sanji. Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much.
Okay, hope
I
to see
really
you all soon.
appreciate